Good day, everyone. Our topic for today is about reflective practice in teaching, action research and portfolio development, presentation, and submission. But before I start discussing my lesson, let me start with a situation. Imagine that you are already a teacher. You prepared your lesson carefully. You explained the topic, you gave an activity, and then you check your students' outputs. But when you look at the results, you realize that many of your students did not understand the lesson. What would you do? Would you simply say, my students did not study enough and move on? Or would you ask yourself, what happened? Why did they struggle? And what can I do differently? Exactly. The second response is where reflective practice begins. As teachers, we should not only teach and move forward. We also need to look back at our teaching, examine what happened, and determine how we can improve. And today, we will learn two ways of doing that systematically: action research and portfolio development. By the end of this discussion, you should be able to first analyze the basic process of action research and essential components of a teaching portfolio. Second, develop a simple action research process and organize appropriate teaching evidence into a basic portfolio outline. And third, value reflective practice by recognizing the importance of action research and portfolio development in improving teacher effectiveness and supporting continuous professional growth. So by the end of this lesson, I don't want you to simply remember the definitions, but I want you to be able to analyze, apply, and appreciate how these practices can help you become better teachers. Now, let us start or begin with our lesson. What is action research? What comes to your mind when you hear the word research? Usually, we think of research as collecting information, analyzing data, and finding answers. But action research takes this process into the teacher's actual classroom. Action research is a systematic form of inquiry conducted by teachers to examine problems or situations in their own teaching practice and determine ways to improve them. So, in simpler terms, identify the problem, then investigate it, take action, and then examine the evidence, and reflect, and then improve. So, action research connects three important things. First is research, then action, and reflection. So, why is action research important? Teachers encounter different classroom challenges. For example, students may not participate in discussion. They may have difficulty reading materials. They may have weak writing skills. Or perhaps a teaching strategy that we thought would work simply did not produce the expected results. Instead of immediately blaming the students, action research encourages us to ask, what evidence can I collect to understand the problem? That question is important because we do not simply assume the problem, we investigate it. Now, let us move on to the basic process of action research. Let us look at the basic process. It is shown here in our action research graphic organizer. There are 7 basic steps. First, we have to identify the problem. The teacher identifies an actual classroom concern. Second, investigate the problem. The teacher gathers evidence to understand the problem. Third, plan an action. The teacher decides what strategy or intervention may address the problem. Fourth, implement the action. The planned strategy is applied in the classroom. Fifth, collect and analyze evidence. The teacher examines whether the intervention made a difference. Six, reflect on the results. The teacher asks what worked, what did not work, and why. And finally, make further improvements. The teacher decides what should be continued, changed, or improved. And because teaching is a continuous process, action research is also cyclical. We can always return to the problem, learn from the results, and begin another cycle of improvement. Now let us move to the second part of our lesson, portfolio writing and consolidation. What is teaching, or what is a teaching portfolio? A teaching portfolio is a carefully selected collection of evidence that documents a teacher's experiences, teaching practices, accomplishments, student learning, and professional reflection. But I want you to remember one important point. A portfolio is not simply a folder of documents. It is a story of professional growth supported by evidence. For example, I could simply write, I use group activities in my lesson. But that tells us a very little. A stronger reflection would be, I use group activities to increase student participation. I observed that students became more comfortable sharing ideas in small groups. However, some students still relied on their group members. So in my next lesson, I will assign specific roles to ensure that everyone participates. Notice the difference? The second example contains first, the experience. The second is the evidence. Third is the reflection. Fourth is the learning. And the last is the very important one, the improvement. This is what makes portfolio writing meaningful. And now, let us move on to what is the purpose of a teaching portfolio. In our PowerPoint presentation, I provided 5, which is first we have the documentation, second we have the reflection, third is the professional development, fourth is the evidence of teaching effectiveness, and fifth is the assessment and evaluation. Now, what can be included in a teaching portfolio? A teaching portfolio should be selective and purposeful. We can organize it properly. First, we have personal and professional information. This includes who we are as teachers and what we believe about teaching and learning. Second is the teaching materials. These have the lesson plans, activities, instructional materials, and assessments. Third is the evidence of student learning, the students' outputs, assessment results, and feedback. And we also have the professional development. So this includes the seminars, workshops, training, certificates, and achievements. And the last one is the reflective documents. Reflective documents includes reflective writings, action research, journals, and improvement plans. So we can remember it through the simple formula. The professional identity, teaching evidence, student learning, plus professional growth, and the last one, the reflection. So now, let us move on to the portfolio consolidation. Having all this material is not enough. We need to consolidate them. Portfolio consolidation means organizing our materials, evidence, and reflection into one coherent and meaningful collection. A portfolio may contain introduction, teaching philosophy, teaching experiences, evidence of practice, action research, reflection, professional development, future goals, and the appendices. The key is organization and purpose. We should not include something simply because we have it. We include it because it provides evidence of our teaching, learning, reflection, or professional growth. So, in conclusion, before we end, remember this: good teaching does not end when the lesson ends. Our reflective teacher looks back and asks, what did my students learn? What worked? What did not work? And most importantly, what can I do better next time? Action research help us investigate classroom problems and improve our practice. A teaching portfolio helps us document the evidence of that practice and reflect on our professional growth. Therefore, action research help us improve what we do, while portfolio development help us understand and demonstrate how we have grown. As future teachers, every classroom challenge should not simply be seen as a problem. It can be an opportunity to reflect, research, act, and grow. Thank you so much for finding this video and let me know if it has impact in your learning.